The princess, 8, was born into a powerful position in a powerful nation. But as though that weren't enough, the gods granted her the power over space and life. A recent encounter with a pack of jackals, and she is left traumatized. While the jackals dropped dead at her mere command to do so, it awoke a sense of vulnerability, of mortality. There she stands, in her bedchamber, beholding her hand. With a command, or even just a snap of her fingers, space itself folds to her will. Yet that hand trembled uncontrollably. She has been seeing those teeth when she closes her eyes at night, hearing claw marks on stone. She understands it's irrational, but she still dreads the creatures, knowing they may get her when she is unaware or unable to command their death. If everything else obeys her commands, maybe she can command herself. With a snap of her fingers, she wills her fear of jackals vanquished. But the gods gave her power of space, power of life, not power of mind. That is outside her domain. Thus, the thought of the creatures still shakes her. Her experiment was not without result, though. Unwittingly, she created something. A being with no form, no mass, not even a will, a null entity. Indetectable by every conceivable means, it might as well be non-existent. But reality consists of more than what can be distilled into a beaker. The entity, unaffected by matter, and no will to dictate otherwise, inherits the direction of the momentum of the princess's initial snap, traveling through the chamber wall, traveling outside the palace, traveling away from the empire, always following the curvature of the planet. It travels, formless, mindless, doing nothing to alter its pattern, flying over ravines, phasing through mountains. It orbits the planet at about 3 feet above sea level to eventually return to the princess's chambers from the opposite direction, only to repeat the cycle. The princess, 15, watched as soldiers shuffled back in through the city gates. Battered, the survivors carry the remains of those who didn't. A victory, but the cost is more than the family of the deceased would have liked. The princess returns to her bedchamber to ponder. There must be a better way. All the effortless power she commands, and yet she was home, safe. Certainly she could vanquish any singular foe who challenged her. A snap of her fingers and her assailant would dissolve into sand. A snap of her fingers and an entire army would dissolve into sand. But there is no nuance. Her own soldiers would get caught in the effect. She would have to do so before the enemy forces entangle with hers. On top of that, she is but one person. She can't be everywhere at once. Enemies will either learn where she is and attack other sites, or adopt a stealthier approach overall. There must be a better solution. Soldiers. Expendable soldiers. Soldiers that aren't someone's father, someone's husband, someone's son. While it might be eerie to have a class of soldier that somehow isn't human, it'll save lives and ensure the nation's security. Soldiers so numerous, one might be better off counting the grains of sand. Or if numbers won't deter attackers, what if her soldiers were so monstrous that their sight alone would force reconsideration amongst would-be assailants? What should this monstrous soldier be? What should it look like? What is the most frightening creature she can conceive? A figure made of sand starts climbing out of the dune. Hands, arms, it is the shape of a man, but the head, that of a jackal. It clambers to his feet and stands at attention. The sand falls away as the form solidifies. A man, but with black, all-encompassing fur, a jackal's head, and a soldier's uniform. The princess presents her solution to the people. A soldier who will fight ferociously and need not break any hearts when it is slain. The people recoil at the sight. The princess understands. She recoils internally as well. The internal memory, the snarls, the sharp teeth, what little light reflecting in their eyes. still seared into her psyche, now reflected in this monstrous visage. But her word is law, and she will continue to conjure these creatures until it dwarfs the human roster that guards their mighty state. The new guard, these jackaloids, now patrol. The sight of them is still disconcerting to the civilians, but no complaints have arisen. No complaints that haven't been arisen against the previous guard, anyway. They do their duty. They faithfully serve. Eventually, the null entity's orbit brings it back through the Empire. Now occupied by these conjurations, its circumstantial path brings it in close proximity, or even right through a jackaloid. All it takes is an unlucky positioning, and the null entity continues its mindless journey, having unwittingly siphoned just a touch of identity from the oblivious guard. Year after year, pass after pass, the null entity absorbs just a smidge of identity, of will, if it accidentally passes too close to a jackaloid. Eventually, the entity becomes aware enough of its surroundings and spots something that intrigues it, a hair. For the first time in its existence, it alters course. Slowing down, keeping to the ground, the entity's instincts kick in, one pace after another, creeping up upon the oblivious target until it feels it is close enough to pounce. The entity lunges. Only 2 or more accelerated paces, it bounds and phases right through the hair and into the ground. The oblivious hair remains munching on the grass. It never even knew it was being stalked. The entity remains formless and massless. It doesn't understand what just happened. It simply floats there, mere inches under the surface, disassociated with being for the time being. Before long, it centers its will, and to a primal frustration, emerges from the ground to begin stalking anew. This pattern repeats, driven solely by instinct to hunt, only to face through the target upon conclusion. Every once in a while, a rival jackal will enter the entity's territory, but only to never acknowledge its imperceptible warnings and impotent attacks, always concluding the same as its hunting attempts. Only by luck does a jackaloid patrol trod through the entity's presence, to be greeted in the same way, to be imperceivably warned and attacked, to the ignorance of the soldiers who resume their uninterrupted patrol. But via those encounters, the unwitting siphon of will and self resumes. Throughout the years, via the entity's chance encounters with the jackaloids, it absorbs enough identity to manifest visually and audibly. Now, upon stalking, a ghostly image manifests, low, slow, and finally bounding the last few paces. The prey now reacts to the obvious attack. Yet, like before, the killing strike phases through the mortified prey. The entity dispels, still unable to comprehend the failure, to resume hunting after it centers. Now that there is something to see, growls and snarls to hear, the odds of being seen have risen above 0%. Civilian hunters, traders, or whoever has reason to be outside the city walls will occasionally report a spectral jackal, materializing to stalk prey and or vanishing upon final pounce. Rumors spread about this cryptid. Some believe, some don't. Others will see it, many will not. The adventurous may attempt to seek it out. This ghost jackal becomes an urban legend to the citizens of the Empire. A very rare sight, but a sight nonetheless. The Jackaloid Patrol, of which many members spend time outside the city gates, are driven by duty to protect, and or the same curiosity the citizens express. They often seek out the entity. They occasionally succeed. A spectral jackal manifests, and, if warnings ignored, pounces. It would always play out the same way. Whether the Jackaloid swung first or not, any contact with the entity would dispel it. It's still there, just disassociated and imperceivable. The real winner of those encounters is the entity, as proximity to the conjured jackaloids always continued the slow, an unwitting siphon of identity and will. As this pattern continues for years, the entity begins to wonder, what am I? Years of incidental encounters with the princess's conjurations, and the entity, this shadow, finally attains enough will to question, why can't I touch anything? Why do I fly like the birds? The shadow associates with the Jackaloids, feeling a kinship with them despite knowing nothing but attacking and being attacked by them. It feels like they have a connection somehow. The shadow phases through the city walls, still invisible, but now understanding what it can do. It will no longer be disassociated from the world. Wandering imperceptibly, it listens. It listens to the chatter between the humans, between the Jackaloids. It seeks to learn. Ultimately, it learns of the Princess, 22, that she conjured the Jackaloid army. Yes, the princess. The shadow remembers that day, all those years ago. The snap of a young princess's fingers, and the shadow was born. Just because it couldn't comprehend what happened back then, doesn't mean it forgot what happened. It remembers every moment of its existence, the years of mindlessly orbiting the planet, of hunting prey to its frustrating inconclusion. The shadow is a conjuration of the princess, just like the Jackaloids. It wants to shed this nature. It needs to rise above being an accident, being made in an attempt to discard. It clearly isn't going to be a welcome addition to the princess's reality. Plus, behold the Jackaloids, servile, expendable, arrow fodder. The shadow will not abide being disposable. It must rise above, must supplant its creator. But how? It still cannot interact with the physical world, but it can manifest visually and audibly. However, it doubts jumping out and going boo will kill the princess. On top of that, the princess may have the power to uncreate what was created. The shadow's hope may be the Jackaloids. Being near them has granted it will and identity. Perhaps its vacuous nature is draining theirs in the process. They are indeed numerous, and of the physical world. Proximity, sweet words, and well-chosen targets. It may take years more, but the shadow plots. Will subvert the princess's trusted army, and someday sit upon the princess's throne.